what you're saying, be able to get points across in a cohesive manner that everyone can understand. You know, when you watch a news broadcast, whether it's NBC Nightly News or your local news, the rule of thumb is to kind of write it to a fourth grade level. And you do that to make sure that everybody can kind of understand it, whether you're a child watching it or you're literally just uneducated people that want to be able to know what's going on in their community. So you have to kind of be able to talk on that everyman level without going so far down to where it's, you know, not professional. And so you need to be able to do that with commentary as well. And if you get too highfalutin with your commentary, or on the other hand, if you go too deep into the wrestling lingo and lore, then you're going to lose a lot of the regular people that are watching as well. So it's being able to help find that balance that's there. I think that, you know, the promo ability of holding the mic and being able to talk for, you know, a minute or 90 seconds, I think that's something that really ingrained in me doing it for so long is I can be talking, and if I'm thinking about it, like I need to talk for 90 seconds and 90 seconds only, I'll hit it without having to look at a clock. And I think that that's really helpful in television because, you know, if you get that, a lot of guys will be, you know, here's your promo, you get 60 seconds. They'll either go way under or way over. Like, but if you can have that clock inside where you know right about where 60 seconds is going to be, you're going to be able to eat the amount of time that you've been allotted by the booker and the producer for the show, which is going to make them happy, and you'll use the maximum amount you have to be able to get yourself over. And so I think that that's a really important skill that you cannot really teach. It's something that you have to practice. It's like you can tell someone how to shoot a free throw all day, but they're never going to be good at free throws unless they're standing at the line and doing it every day for a certain amount of time, you know? So it's that muscle memory of knowing that. So I think that that was a part of it. There is an adrenaline aspect to news, which I think was probably one of the reasons why I kept on it for so long is because there were, believe me, there were tons of days where it was awful. And you are either from an emotional standpoint, I have to interview the mother of the child that died.
Right.
For whatever reason it was, whether it was COVID or they got shot by a cop or whatever. Or there were days where you're sitting in a city council meeting where they're going to wait till the end of the meeting to do this very important vote on this bond issue that you need to do a story on, and you're sitting there for fucking 5 hours, and it's just so boring. And then they do the vote, and you try to get sound bites with these, you know, council members, and they don't want to talk to you, and it's just like, ugh, those are just awful days. But then there's the other days, then there's the other super adrenaline-filled days when you're doing that boring story, you get the call, 5-alarm fire on the south side, get in the car, boom, you're going. You know, or we have the officer involved shooting, or we have this going on, or we got this is happening, and there's big breaking news, or the hurricane's coming, we need to send someone to the coast. I'd volunteer every time. I was always that guy standing out there in the rain looking like an idiot, showing people how bad it is. And everyone watching at home is like, why are they doing that? That's so stupid. Well, I'll tell you why they do it. It's because people watch it.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason they do it. The only reason why they do anything on the news is, yes, to inform you and educate you as to what's going on in the community or in the country, but it's going to be the stuff that you're going to watch, which is why, you know, on CNN for an hour, they'll talk about volcanic explosions in Iceland that have nothing to do with anybody and nobody's going to get hurt from them. But God damn it, everybody for some reason likes watching volcanoes on TV. And you don't change the channel. And so this, in the same way, you could look at programming that in the same way you want to have professional wrestling. So you want to have something that's going to be interesting on TV and that where people with their ridiculously short attention spans aren't going to change the channel.
True.
Or click to the next thing, you know? So you have to have that thing in there where you're really interested and you really want to see it, whether it's a particular match between athletes that you either like or dislike, or like with what you see with WWE right now a lot, it's CM Punk and Cody Rhodes in the ring, and they're going to talk.
Right.
And this segment is going to be 15 minutes, but people stayed, and they watched. because they're stars.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do the same thing with our programming, where we could have EC3 in there, and he can talk, and he can be, this champion that people want to see and want to hear what he has to say. And his challenger, Matt Cardona, also very interesting, very passionate. You don't change the channel with Matt Cardona, even if he's in his purple suit, and he's obviously not having a match right now, but he's gonna talk. You want to watch it,
Mm-hmm.
Or Aaron Stevens, the manager for our Blunt Force Trauma. What a fantastic talker he is. And so as much as you might hate and despise him for what he does, and he hits people with a loaded glove, and every match they win by cheating, when he talks, you listen, and you hang out.
Right.
So it's finding all of that goodness to keep people on so they don't abandon ship and go to something else. And so that really, if you go down to it, it's all about storytelling and keeping people engaged and interested. It's so similar in the fact that, yes, they're very different when you get into the details, but what you see in your 5 o'clock news and what you're going to see when you watch Power on the CW, at the very base is just that.
Right. No, I love the way you put that too, because, you have to, like you said, let's say somebody's popping in for the first time, they don't know the backstories of any of these people. And like you said, if you get too deep in the woods on the history and everything else, that could really deter somebody from watching, because I don't know, I guess I'd have to go back and catch up. I'm just going to go watch something else. But then you also said that you have to keep it very simple, and like you said, even for an alien coming in and checking out our culture and being like, what is this wrestling thing? And then they're like, you're explaining it to them as it's happening, and then they can fully understand and follow along. And I love that you said, with the news, you have to keep it basic to like a fourth grade level, because you don't know where their fandom is. You don't know if they've ever gotten in and back out again, or this is their first time ever. So I love that you kind of tied all that together. And it's even better, obviously, that all the reps that you got from, doing those stand-up shots in front of a courthouse, or in front of a Walmart that just got shot up, or anything else, or even being the hurricane guy and, having that on every highlight reel ever. You have to do all these things and get these things under your reps, get the reps in, so that you add all these different, we'll go back to Batman, all these utilities that you could put on your belt for later, that you can be even better Batman than you were before.
Yeah, everything goes back to Batman for one. But and even then, it's simple storytelling. If you go back to why are we still interested in this guy who wears a mask and fights crime that started as a comic book, during World War II? Like, why is that still part of our American zeitgeist? Because there's interesting storytelling that people can relate to.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing you need to do in pro wrestling.
Yeah, I love it. That's perfect. Now, when it comes to the news in general, obviously within the past, we're almost on 5 years now, or if not longer, people are starting to kind of steer away from trusting how much the news they're really intaking and what they can trust when it comes to that. And then on the local level, it's so much of the bad stuff, and there's very few good and uplifting stories when it does come to news. And then, the print media is falling by the wayside because so many people don't read. And if they do read the news, they're not going to pay for it. So they'll, for the most part, get stuff off like Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. What do you kind of see the future of the local news and the national news when it comes to getting people to be actually involved and wanting to listen? Because like you said, there was a time to where 5 o'clock you were tied to that TV because you're watching the news and you're trying to figure out what's going on in the world. But now we have everything we ever want on our phones if we actually want to learn anything. So kind of, where do you see the news going from here?
Boy, if I had the answer to that question, I would have a huge mansion somewhere, probably, next to the CNN building. Because it is evolving and it is changing, and I don't think that they know exactly where it's going to go, to kind of take a look back, even pre-COVID pandemic, there were some rocky years when it kind of came to professional wrestling too, where a lot of people were tuning out from that. And now, you know, like we said before, Netflix is paying $5 billion to have it on their app. So it's the same power of having that there. I think that you're always going to have these two camps that are going to want to go to the same trough to get that same information. So they're always going to go to their Fox and their Newsmax and that sort of stuff to get that. And then you're going to get your CNN, MSNBC folks to go and get information and hear the stories that they want to hear there. But I think the advantage that you have with local news is a lot of people don't see that bias, you know, just because there's a Fox affiliate in your town, it does not mean that it's going to be a bunch of pro-Trump stuff when you watch that local channel, like you would if you watch the Fox cable station, because they're owned by different entities. You know, almost every, you know, aside from the major top 10 biggest cities in America, you know, different companies are going to own different stations. So even like where you are in DFW, I think Tegna owns the NBC affiliate there, or maybe it's the CBS affiliate. But it's not directly owned by the folks at NBC. Or even here in San Antonio, the NBC and Fox and CW affiliate is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, which used to own Ring of Honor as well. And that was always my argument when they're like, why are you doing this wrestling thing? I'd be like, well, you know Ring of Honor, right? We own that. It's just like that. And in their mind, I think they thought I was kind of doing Ring of Honor because the news ratings, they don't know. They're not watching wrestling. So I think local news is always going to have a place because people will want to know what is happening around them. And you need to have these dedicated teams in these organizations working to get there. Those teams are going to get smaller. They're going to get consolidated. You know, there was a time in news where a field team that would go out and to do a story could consist of the reporter, a producer, and a camera person. Then that producer kind of just stayed back at the station and was writing the scripts for the majority of the stories that the anchor's reading. So there is no field producer. So you have two people out there. And for the most part, if you're going to any place, any city that is, you know, the size of Austin and smaller, that is a one-person job now. It's a one-man band called an MMJ, where they're shooting it, they're doing their stand-up, which is very dangerous when you're doing it by yourselves, and I hate that. You're writing it, you're editing it, you're posting to the web, you're posting to socials. Like, you're doing a lot as one person. And part of that's because the technology allows you to do that. You can edit very quickly, which is a skill I used to have. I wish I kind of retained that one. Because, you know, I'd do two stories, and, you know, there was a time when I was working here in San Antonio where I didn't have to edit my own stuff. But before that, I was editing my stuff all the time. And I had to slap stuff together. Like, and here we go. I got a minute-long package I need to send to the station. It's got to make air in, you know, 60 minutes. All right, I got to get this done. I get it done now. And so, you know, that's a skill that you kind of have to have. But at the end of the day, as small as those teams are going to be, it's still going to be there because I want to know what's going on. I want to be able to trust that. So even if it's not me tuning in at 5 o'clock every day, I'll probably still have the app on my phone of the local news thing, and I'll get the push alert that'll say major traffic jam on I-35. You should avoid it this morning if you can. And all these other things that are going to be helpful for throughout your day and to do things, you know. And I don't, you know, there's always going to be bias when you do any sort of news, but you're going to get a lot less of it, I believe, from your local television station because the people who are there and they're making that content for you are people that are within your community. And there shouldn't be any sort of nefarious actions that are happening behind the scenes with the people who are doing your local news. Cable's a whole different animal. That's all getting viewers and talking to tribes and all that other sort of shit. But as far as your local stuff goes, like, I feel like those people, as a person who's worked in newsrooms for over a decade, I can tell you there are a bunch of overworked people that are trying to do the best they can to tell a good story and give you the facts as they are.
Right. Okay. Good to know. Yeah.